We have a lot to talk about today. I'm going to start off with a story, which is going to lead me to talk about why I started my YouTube channel, Let's Talk UVS, and where I see my channel going forward. And then I'm going to finish off with some thoughts about the Rochester RLE that happened this weekend. If you're only interested in my thoughts about the RLE, go ahead and skip forward in this video. But I'm going to start with a story about competitive events and why I'm here today. So we had our first in-person RLE this year in April. And the last RLE last year was, we had nationals in like October, November. I can't remember which month it was. And then we had this huge drought of competitive events all the way until April. And so I was very, very excited to, participate in an event for the card game. And so I signed up for the Florida RLE, and I paid, it's not cheap to fly out of Lubbock, right? So I paid like $400 in plane tickets, $100 or $200 for the Airbnb that I stayed at. I wasn't going with anybody, wasn't sharing a room with anybody, but it was a big deal to me. I really wanted to be there for the first major RLE. We had the Oceanic RLE, which was definitely big in its own right, but this was the first one in person and felt like a big deal. And, even though the pricing was a little lackluster, and so some people were expecting it to be a smaller event, there were still 169 players. I had been just practicing with Shoto Todoroki 1. When I started playing Todoroki 1 in like December and January, I was getting my tail kicked pretty consistently. It wasn't until really the beginning of March when I started to win games with the deck, after I had gone through several iterations of it, trying to perfect the deck size and the tech cards that you put in, and just your play patterns against different matchups. There's a ton of practice that goes in, and I really didn't want to fly all the way to Florida and take this whole weekend away from my family. I have 2 children. I'm a father of 2 and married, so it's a big deal to go on my own and take a trip and play cards. It's a big sacrifice financially, and it's a big sacrifice from a family perspective. And I did not want to waste it. So I was going with Todoroki 1, but I was going with the full intention of making top cuts and winning the event. I was not going just to, have fun. Although I was wanting to have fun, right? So I go to Florida, and this is when Ojiro 2 has taken over the game. We saw a ton of Ojiro 2s in the Oceanic RLE, and everybody was saying that he was the best character. And Ojiro 2 was the most represented deck in Florida, but a lot of the best players in the game weren't playing Ojiro 2. And then most of the Ojiro 2s lost in their win-in. For example, I played someone who played Ojiro 2 on my final match. I got pretty lucky and won that round. And so a lot of the Ojiro 2s lost their win-in, so I think we only had like 2 Ojiro 2s in top cuts, right? And then I was actually the stream game for the first round of top cuts, where I lost to the All Might 4 list that was playing that huge Detroit punch. I won by mill in game 1, and then he switched to All Might 3, and I lost games 2 and 3. Game 3, I believe I lost on a pretty bad misplay that I try not to think about. But I had an amazing time at the event, and then I came back home, got much more homesick than I expected that I would get. I started really missing wife and kids on Sunday night. But came home, had an absolute blast, really enjoyed the event, and I was really looking forward to the content creators in the game talking about the event, because I felt like I didn't know if Todoroki had ever topped before, or if I was the first one to make top cuts with a Shoto Todoroki. But I felt like I had really pulled off something big, and like I had proven this really cool style of deck that I had built. Not only that, but I just thought the event as a whole was awesome, because this was the first time we see I guess we saw Life Recovery Girl at the HLC, but we had Travis Tangeman top with this Life Recovery list that has certainly not gone away, although it's been iterated on much more since then. We saw the All Might 4 deck come out. We saw just a lot of really cool different decks. We saw Ochako 2 won the event. Nobody saw Ochako 2 winning the event. We saw Momo and Eraserhead, a Death Bakugo, or was it Fire? I can't remember, but a Bakugo had topped. So I thought that this was going to be a really cool story, and that people will be talking about this. So on Tuesday, it's the Board State podcast, which is to me, it's some of the best content for this game. I watch every single Tuesday. I absolutely love all of the content that Tam and Andrew put out. They're two of my favorite content creators, and I try to support them. Tam's doing a subathon right now. If you have not tuned into the subathon and gifted some subs, you should definitely join in there, or sub for yourself if you haven't yet. He does just, a ton for this community. So I was really looking forward to the Board State podcast and what they were going to talk about on the Florida RLE. And for whatever reason, this Board State podcast, it felt like, the main talking point was, well, this RLE didn't count because people weren't playing Ojiro 2. Even though Ojiro 2 was still the most represented character and still got 2 in top cuts, the talking point was the best players in the game purposely were avoiding Ojiro 2 because they just wanted to play their pet decks, and the prizing makes it to where people just want to play pet decks and it doesn't really matter who wins. And that was the main talking point of the podcast. And I felt really, really disappointed in that. And then they brought on Nathan, who is a very cool person, had gotten second with Momo, but Nathan was pretty upset that about the prizing, because he had gotten second, but the prizing was so lackluster it didn't feel amazing, right? Which I totally understand, and I totally understand feeling a little sad about the prizing in season 1. Season 2's been better, still not quite to where it should be. This Nats prizing looks incredible, and I hope that's more indicative of competitive seasons going forward. But in season 1, the prizing was kind of sad, and so the whole just tone of the podcast that day was, in my opinion, very, very negative. And a lot of the really cool decks that had topped, I felt like didn't get talked about enough. And then Andrew had stopped doing the top 16 deck reviews, right? Because when he was running the Go Beyond Gaming YouTube channel, he'd always do like a review of the top 16 decks, or sometimes Sam would on Ace Maneuvers, also another great YouTube channel. But there was no top 16 reviews done by any content creator. Tam has since been doing some on how to play those decks. But for whatever reason, this Florida RLE, just nobody, I don't think anybody did like a deck list review of the top 16. And so I felt like I had made top cuts with this really cool deck, and it was just going to get forgotten or not really appreciated, which maybe is a little bit prideful of me. I did lose in top 16, right? So it wasn't like, if I wanted it to be seen, maybe I should have just won the event, Can't really be salty about that. But maybe that's a little prideful of me, but I felt sad. It was my first time to top an event. I'd only been playing the game for 6 months at that point, and so I was a little disappointed in that. So what happened was I wanted to make a deck profile video for the Todoroki deck since there was no top 16 deck reviews. And I actually tried like 2 or 3 times to film myself doing a deck profile, and every time I would be kind of embarrassed about something. Either I would trip up on my words, or I would just be kind of embarrassed at my lack of like setup or something, And sometimes I can let perfection be the enemy of good and stand in the way. And I've been learning just to put videos up, even if they're imperfect, and even if some things are a little embarrassing, just to live with it. And so I had tried like 3 times to make a deck profile video, and I never uploaded it. And talked with Andrew about this, and Andrew really encouraged me to just go ahead and upload it. And just let it be out there, even if it's not perfect. And I took encouragement from that, and I finally filmed a deck profile and put it up. Of course, hardly anybody watched because I'm not, it was a new channel and not an established. And by this point, it was like 2-3 months. It was probably June or July by the time I finally put my deck profile up. I think it was late June, maybe it was late May. I can't quite remember. The point is, it was well after the RLE by the time I finally made the deck profile. But I wanted to make the deck profile before Undaunted Raid came out, and I felt like it was obsolete. So I put that deck profile up, and that's how I got this channel started. And And so that's one of the main things that I want my channel to be focused on. There's three things that I want my channel to be focused on. And the first one is I want all competitive players who make top cuts to always feel seen and appreciated, and that their decks are celebrated. Because I think topping any event is a big deal. So a lot of times you will hear certain players say, oh, you topped the UK regional, so it doesn't count because it's UK. Or, oh, you topped Pasadena or Rochester. You know, these were RLEs with less than 100 people, so it doesn't really count. Or you might hear, well, the prizing isn't as good as last year, so this year competitive play just doesn't matter, and isn't indicative of what's really good in the format. You'll hear all sorts of things like this, and I just don't ascribe to any of those. I really don't feel like anyone's taking 9 hours out of their Saturday to play cards, and they're going to play with a deck that they don't feel can win. Especially if you're traveling to an in-person event. For example, in my case, it was, you're talking about like normally at least like $500 to go and play in one of these events. And so it is a big deal. And so I just don't ascribe to the feeling that any of these big regional license exams don't matter. I believe they all matter, and I want everybody who tops to feel seen and appreciated. And so that's why I do these deck list reviews, which I'm going to be putting out on the Rochester RLE tomorrow and on Wednesday. I'll do the first half tomorrow and the second half Wednesday. And you'll see just a ton of very, very interesting deck building decisions. I did not see two decks having Twin Sword Slicer in their lists, and just a lot of people running very interesting tech pieces, like the second place Nomu was running the plus ultra card locking the building. Very, very fascinating decision, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about those in the next few days, but that's the number one reason why I started my channel, and one of the main purposes of my channel going forward is to celebrate people who make top cuts and their decks. And that brings me to my second point for this channel, and it's that when I started the game, we had Andrew was doing Go Beyond Gaming, and Levi was putting out a lot of very interesting competitive videos. Like I believe before Nationals, Levi did this series on the good, the bad, the aggro, or maybe he replaced good and bad with something else too. But he was doing these series of competitive gameplay videos and talking about how to overcome like Momo and things. And I always just really appreciated those videos. But eventually Levi started doing, just focusing his time on Patreon and commentating, which I totally understand. And, I really appreciate all that Levi does for the community. But I was sad that we stopped getting those kind of videos. And then Andrew stopped with Go Beyond Gaming. He since puts out some stuff on his YouTube channel, Andrew Holder, which you should definitely check out. And I always appreciate when something gets uploaded, but of course not nearly as much as when it was Go Beyond Gaming, right? Now it's more focused towards the Board State podcast, which I very much appreciate. But it felt like we were not getting a lot of competitive videos and content put out there for the game, which was sad to me because I like to watch, at least something like every few days about the game. And a lot of the videos that were getting put out at this time were just like gameplay videos, which I appreciate, but I like to, be able to turn something on and just listen in the background. And gameplay videos, you really have to watch and know what's going on. Sometimes there's background noise, sometimes it goes too slow. And so I appreciate gameplay videos, but I felt like we were missing this like strategy resources to the game. And so in late May, I tore my ACL and my meniscus jumping on the trampoline with my kids. And I had surgery in July, the week before the webcam RLE. And of course, I participated in the webcam RLE and made top cuts with Mirio. Part of the reason I felt like I did well at that RLE is because I went and stayed in our guest bedroom so that the kids wouldn't jump on me while my knee was recovering, right? And I played more cards that week than I've ever played in my entire life. I was just playing like 10 hours a day of cards, just keeping my mind busy and kind of off the pain in my knee. While I was recovering. So I was just doing a ton of cards, and I started making these strategy videos. Like at this time I made a video like how to beat Mirio, how to pierce the Airy Veil, yeah, I just started making like a video every day, and I was having a ton of fun doing it. And people actually started watching my videos, which I thought was neat. Because up to this point, it would be like a video gets like 30 views. And now it's like a video gets like 100, 200 views. And then I know that people in the community are actually watching and caring about the things I put out. So I really appreciated that. And I had a lot of fun doing it. So then I just kept doing that. I've just been having too much fun making these strategy videos. So that's number 2 for my channel, is I want to be a strategy resource. I want to continue making these, like after the webcam RLE, I made how Death Eraserhead took it down, or how Mirio can overcome Eraserhead and Overhaul, or just some like top 10 list videos, or how you can further break Maximum Overhaul. Just little videos like this. I want to keep putting those out. So I want to be here for competitive players, and I want to be here for strategy resources. And then the last thing is, I felt like the tone in the community, especially early this year, can be too negative. You know, if you check out Discord and Facebook, people can react to small negative videos and with over-the-top reactions, and sometimes the tone of, and so sometimes it can be sad. You know, you don't want to be around things that make you feel sad and negative. And so, you know, sometimes these environments can just get too negative, and I want to be a positive voice in the community. I don't want to be fake. I always want to be authentic, but there's a way to disagree with things or point out faults without being negative about it. And without being super like, oh no, the card game is ending, or saying I'm selling off my collection. You know, the point is, are you having fun playing the game? As long as you're having fun playing the game, then you should be happy. and you should have a fun time looking at the Discord and Facebook and talking with community members. So I want to make sure that I'm always a positive member of this community. So those are the 3 purposes for my channel: celebrate the players, be here for strategy content, and be a positive voice in the community. And I anticipate myself making videos for years to come. I absolutely love this game. I've honestly never really had this much fun. You know, I've been a big fantasy football player over the last few years, but and so that's been nice. And let's see, I like Texas Hold'em. You know, I mean, I enjoy things, but I've just never had so much fun as this game, and especially playing it with my brother. We play it almost every night, it feels like. Get some games in for play testing or something, or maybe not every night, but 2 or 3 times a week. So I've just had a ton of fun, and I'm going to be here for the long haul in all likelihood. And so I know the quality of my videos is not great from an audio perspective or a video perspective. I am still working things out on all of those issues, but I'm getting a little better. I've got like a friend working on a intro and outro for my videos right now. And I anticipate that I'll just learn along the way. I'll just upload videos, even if they're a little embarrassing. I'll learn along the way. And, you know, maybe in a year from now, you'll click on this channel and I'll actually look like, you know, a YouTuber, and not just somebody filming on their couch in their living room. Or just, you know, from their desk in their bedroom. Like, I'll actually look legit. But who knows? We will see. You know, the number one thing is to always stay authentic, and those are my 3 goals: celebrate players, strategy content, and stay positive. Okay, enough about me. Let's jump into this RLE. The reason I started with that is because there were only 75 players for the Rochester RLE. And so I feel like something some people might say is, well, it was a smaller RLE, it's right before Nats, and so we're just not going to take it seriously. And I don't want to do that. I do want to take it seriously, because in the end, RLEs are the main thing we have to go off of. And so I feel like we have to respect them and their results, and celebrate the players who participate in them, because they are these huge 2-day long, 10 hours a day competitions. I cannot be convinced that players aren't trying their best when they go to an RLE. I just can't be convinced otherwise. So let's talk about this RLE. We had Kevin Broberg win on Good Momo, which I thought was very, very cool deck. This like Echo Momo playing Twin Sword Slicer and Double Trouble. It was very asset heavy. I saw there were 10 asset cards in the deck. Just a very, very cool list. And then second place was Earth Nomu, which I think, been sleeping on Earth Nomu, which is funny since I played Earth Nomu for Nationals last year and came within 1 game of making top cuts. I but I feel like because I dropped the deck because I felt like it was too obvious, this like all mids Nomu, um, that maybe I've been disrespecting it a little bit. And after TC got second in the webcam regional, and now Jacob getting second in the New York regional, and lots of Nomus that have made top cuts in between and fallen in like top 4 or top 8. I think you have to respect this deck. I thought Jacob's list was really cool, playing like the locking the building and the learning the standards and just some really cool defensive tech pieces. I think like there's probably 10 matchups that you absolutely have to play test against and be ready for going into nationals. And I think Earth Nomu has absolutely earned itself a spot on that list. You have to be prepared for this Earth Nomu list that is just going to kill you super early if you do not get your defense established. And then even if you get your defense established, it can just exhaust your resources. And do you have cards in hand to block 5 times? Because all of my moves are for 10 damage. So you have to be ready for that Earth Nomu list. Very cool that Evil Tabe made top 4. Big shout out to Scott for doing that. We saw Evil make 2 top cuts, one with Toya and one with Tabe. The Evil symbol is definitely here to stay. And I think you will definitely see it in numbers at nationals. We've seen Evil top with a lot of different characters now. We've seen Evil Mimic. We've seen Evil Overhaul, Evil Toya, Evil Tabe. Have we seen Evil Shigaraki 3 so far this season? I feel like I'm missing a few. We've seen Evil Endeavor 2 last season. So the Evil symbol has gotten a lot better with Vile Seizing, Barrier Shield, card Twisty Surroundings, Cooperation Offer, just cards like that. That's definitely here to stay. Fire Rappa, once again, had 2 in top cuts. Now, Rappa seems to be pretty good at making top cuts and then not going very far in the tournament. But you do have to be prepared for it at nationals. It's going to be a very popular deck. It's a very aggressive deck playing bullet punches. We saw somebody at this RLE playing bullet punches and another 2-check, Charged Shield Breaker. Very, very cool. You see this this just momentum strategy. Just he can play 6 or 7 attacks on turn 2 if he draws them, and can be very, very scary. And you've got to have your high blocks ready for bullet punches so that he can't replay it again and stash something in his momentum. So this Fire Rappa is definitely here to stay. Let's see, what else? Chaos Amajiki has once again made top cuts, seems to be a very consistent player here. Oh, and of course, Maximum Overhaul, making itself felt. Just 1 week after becoming legal, there's 2 overhauls that top. They're both on Earth. They're both playing Maximum Overhaul at least the 3x. We saw 11 overhauls participate in the tournament. We knew of at least 1 life overhaul that was running a list very, very similar to Andrew's list at Gen Con. But it was the overhaul list that topped. And, if you watched my video on Maximum Overhaul, or at least I was expecting this, that Maximum Overhaul would pretty soon dominate and be a force to reckon with. And I'm not even sure these lists were perfectly optimized lists for Maximum Overhaul, although they were both very, very good. And I'll get into them over the next few days. But my brother's been playing a Maximum Overhaul on the Kicks package with Recipro Acceleration, and I got my tail kicked at locals this weekend by Maximum Overhaul. I was playing the Mirio list that I did a deck profile on in the Defend Your Honor video where I played a round of 5 with Life Overhaul to show that Life Overhaul wasn't a bad matchup for Mirio. Just something to kind of put my money where my mouth is. I took it to locals this weekend for the store championship, and I just got whooped by a Maximum Overhaul Earth list. And I think that is going to be an attack that absolutely has to be respected. I don't think it does a ton for the life symbol overhaul decks, but it does a ton for Evil, and especially on Evil when you get access to Nebulous Stare, which can build itself down, and now you just have another attack to pick up with Maximum Overhaul. Or on Earth, where you can clear progressive, you have cards like Heart. If you want to do the punch package, which is very strong with Homage to My Hero, then you get access to cards like Heart and Jab. Or you can just pick up some more seizing the advantages. There's just a ton of things you can do. Also on Earth sometimes gets bogged down in face down foundations without the ability to unflip them. Well, Maximum Overhaul gives you a chance to unflip them, and then you can pick up your internships, your zero diffs, replay them again if you just want to build and force your rival to flip more of their foundations. There's just a lot that you can be doing with that card. I think you definitely have to be ready for that. Overhaul is going to be one of those characters that's really hard to test for going into Nats because he's strong on just so many different types of builds. You could build an Overhaul that could top a regional license exam on about, I would say, 20 to 50 different builds. There's just so many different directions that character can go and still be strong. But Maximum Overhaul is definitely one of the cards you have to be ready for. And I think that's going to do it for me for today. For the, let me see, anything else? No, I think I pretty much covered everything. But anyway, that's the purpose of my channel. Celebrate players, put out strategy content, stay positive. And Earth Overhaul and Earth Nomu are going to be matchups you need to be ready for. Evil is here to stay. Fire Rappa is definitely going to be a very, very popular character. And again, just another huge congratulations to Kevin Broberg for taking down the whole event, defending home turf with good Momo.